Hello! I have a confession to make. A few weeks ago I made a video about Justice League and how it reminded me of the film Greed. At the time I thought Greed was the most apt film to compare with Justice League, but it turns out...
No, there is another.
The film that is a better comparison to Justice League is, in fact, Godzilla King of the Monsters. The reason I didn't know it would make a good comparison is because I hadn't seen the film until recently. Oi, what do you mean you ain't seen it? You made a 2-hour video talking about it. Oh right, yeah. Let me clarify. Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019 is a superb film, a great joy to watch and should be seen by everyone everywhere, though not strictly all at once. Ha. And yes, I did make a video on it. Link below if you haven't watched it already. What I'm referring to here is Godzilla King of the Monsters! 1956. For a good long while this film was out of my reach. Trying to get hold of Godzilla anything over here is a bit of an arse. For example, when Shin Godzilla was released, Americans complained about having to drive significant distances to find a cinema showing it. At least they had some. I had thought of making videos on Godzilla King of the Monsters! But like I said, I hadn't seen it and didn't want to offer misinformed opinions. I had heard that it removed a lot of, and was overall a downgrade from, the original work, but I wasn't aware of specifics. Randomly, I managed to find a copy of the film online, so I finally got round to watching it. And I can say with confidence that what I'd heard about it was true, and also wasn't. In that regard alone it has similarities to Justice League, but the comparisons don't stop there. For all my complaints about the 2021 Snyder Cut of Justice League, it is a far more cohesive film than its predecessor. The 2017 theatrical release was a mess of editing that affected the tone, characters, story, you name it. Whatever Justice League may have turned out like had he stayed on in 2017, I think it's safe to say that the 2021 cut is certainly closer to what Zack Snyder would have wanted it to be. Whereas the theatrical cut is definitely what the studios preferred. This, in a nutshell, is why the film Godzilla King of the Monsters! Is so relevant. For those that don't know about the original Godzilla film, hello, welcome to my channel, feel free to subscribe, link to my Patreon below. Anyway, quick overview. Godzilla 1954 is a story about a giant radioactive monster that burns Tokyo. The film was inspired theatrically by the 1953 film The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Sociopolitically, it was inspired by the nuclear bombings of Japan and the nuclear tests and subsequent pollution in the Pacific Ocean, which included the irradiation and deaths of fishermen on the Lucky Dragon fishing boat. The nuclear narrative hangs over the film like a cloud, a mushroom cloud if you will, giving Godzilla a much darker mood than most monster films at the time. Anyone who's heard complaints about Zack Snyder's work might be hearing some familiar bells ringing. However, in 1955, the international rights to Godzilla were sold off to an American company, Dual Enterprises, at which point it was edited up the yin-yang. This is where the comparisons to Justice League 2017 come in. Watching both films, it is clear what the aim of the American version was. Make it less demure, cut back on the political stuff, and make it more accessible to Americans and subsequently international audiences. To that end, the new film stars an American reporter named Steve Allen, played by actor Raymond Burr. This new character is inserted into most of the scenes from the original film, sometimes neatly, sometimes like a sledgehammer. In some cases, whole new scenes were filmed with what are supposed to be the other actors. I say supposed to be. I burst out laughing the first time I saw this. How did they think this was good? In King of the Monsters, exclamation mark, these are completely different actors filmed at odd angles to facilitate the new scenes with Steve Allen. In 2017, Justice League had a similar but different problem. New scenes were filmed to add to the existing material, but despite using the same actors, there were still consistency issues. Godzilla King of the Monsters, exclamation mark, edited the film so badly it reduced most of the characters to caricatures, especially Dr. Zerizawa, who looks almost mad in the 56 cut. Once again, this is similar to Justice League, with whole arcs being removed and characters acting bipolar in comparison to the Snyder Cut. The edits in Godzilla King of the Monsters, exclamation mark, were made to insert Steve Allen, as already mentioned, and streamline subplots, mostly with narration. But they were also made to get rid of some of that uncomfortable dialogue about nuclear pollution. This led to the new edit downplaying the nuclear narrative significantly. To make an example of how bad the editing got, let's look at Godzilla's first visual appearance. For some reason, King of the Monsters, exclamation mark, left the original scene in and just stapled its new scene in straight after it. This practically screams at the viewer, look how badly we edited this thing. I could go on about this scene, and I might actually do a deep dive on the film as a whole at some point, but for now I'll keep it short. In the original film, Godzilla is as much a victim as the Japanese people. He is representative not only of nature's wrath, not only of a nation's anger, but of the old world raging defiantly against the new world horrors. At the same time, Emiko, one of the main characters, represents a younger generation whose anger is tempered by fear of that same horror. That's what makes these shots so important. These two characters represent the anger and fear of a nation who remember the nuclear devastation of their country not 9 years prior and are still suffering from the after effects. So what did the 56 cut add? Hello? Sir? Did you want to react to that? Sir? Hello? This is an example of the film jamming Steve Allen into the scene. So much so, it looks like Godzilla is singling him out to roar at. I have no idea why they kept this in. Did they not tell him to react? Did they not tell him what to react to? Was the director asleep? Godzilla 1954 should be held up on a pedestal as one of the great films of cinema. Just like King Kong some 20 years earlier, it shows how great a film can be when made by an impassioned, inspired creator. King of the Monsters exclamation mark shows what happens when a film is hacked up and stamped out by a studio trying to make money. 70 years later, we had almost the same thing with Justice League. And although it has problems and, in my opinion, what we got wasn't what it would have been, the 2021 cut is definitely not the studio cash grab that the 2017 cut was trying to be. Bizarrely, whereas the 2017 cut of Justice League was a flop of epic proportions, King of the Monsters! Ended up being quite the success. When Godzilla was released in 1954, it was a financial success, but critics accused the film of playing on the public's feelings about the nuclear bombings and the Lucky Dragon incident, the latter occurring mere months before the film released. Such negativity might have threatened the franchise's future success, if not for the 1956 release. King of the Monsters! Played down the nuclear narrative and was laughably edited, but much like Justice League, for the most part, the body of the film remained intact. Despite the American studio's attempts to put a veil over it, the international critics praised the film for its serious portrayal of the effects of nuclear weapons. The positive reaction would feed back into Japan and bolster the original film's reputation. Something similar happened with Justice League. The 2017 cut was heavily criticised not only for valid reasons, but also assumed ones. A lot of the blame for all these reasons was put down to the change in director and studio interference. But when the 2021 Snyder Cut was released, a lot of these problems remained, casting new light on the 2017 film, earning it some positive criticism. It's hard to deny there's a lot to compare between these two, or should I say 4, films. But the comparisons are not done yet, both in this video and in the potential future. The original Godzilla wasn't made officially available outside of Japan until 2004, during its 50th anniversary, along with, at the time, the final Japanese Godzilla film, Final Wars. King of the Monsters! Was the only version available to most people for the most time, and being edited the way it was, it gave Godzilla 1954 a more B-movie feel, in spite of its messaging. This and the positive reception potentially influenced the direction of future Godzilla films, leading the franchise down a lighter, campier path that arguably peaked with Godzilla vs. Megalon. "10 years after it was finally made available to the rest of the world, Godzilla would be a significant influence on the reboot of the American Godzilla, bringing the nuclear narrative and darker, more serious tones back into the franchise with a vengeance. Unfortunately, 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong lent hard into the campy side of the Godzilla franchise, and, in my opinion, suffered for it. Similarly, up until 2017, the DC films were generally darker in tone than most other comic book cinematic offerings. The 2017 cut of Justice League, introducing a lighter tone, appears to have influenced its sequels, making them brighter and lighter as well. The Snyder Cut being released after its sequels in 2021 means that there is now an unfortunate tonal mismatch between the films in the series.
Permission to come aboard.
As of this video, both franchises are dancing between light and campy and dark and serious tones. With both franchises having new films in the works, who knows what the future will hold. For me, I would prefer the more serious tones, but I don't mind too much as long as they are made well and make sense. I'm looking at you, Godzilla vs. Kong. Thank you for watching this video. This was a bit late to the party, but I suppose you could consider this to be an addition to my previous video on Justice League. I also tried to be more analytical this time. I hope I managed it. If you liked this video, feel free to subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you fancy something I made, I have an Etsy store you can visit. And I've set up a Patreon if you want to support me so I can keep on doing these videos in the future. Links to both in the description. Once again, thank you for watching.